Good evening, and welcome to another episode of The Fire Caves, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Perry.
I'm your host, David. Tonight we're talking about season 4, episode 25, Body Parts. But before we continue, you can find us on Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and X as The Fire Caves, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine podcast.
That is correct. And as I say every single week, you should find and follow us because we are awesome. And we're a great time. I think we're more of a great time than some people might say that we're awesome, but maybe we're a little column A, a little column B. Who
Yeah.
knows? But overall, I think that you will enjoy following along with us. And yes, as David has included in his long list of things where you can find us, we are back on X. I am trying to update everything and get all of that caught up now that we have full access once again. Changing stuff up a little bit, which I know it sounds like it's Twitter. It's not what's the big deal? But apparently when you let your account basically languish forever, whether that's your fault or not, a lot of things just tend to like disappear, links change, all of that kind of stuff. So I have to update all of those things. And again, they've made it's different than what it was before to do it. So it's just taking a little bit longer to sort through. So I'm still putting stuff out, so just bear with us and we'll get all of that up to date with you. But again, we're there. Um, but yeah, we're not here necessarily to talk about all the issues with X and all the other social medias. I want to get right to our story tonight because I actually enjoyed this episode for a lot of different reasons, and I can't wait to talk about it. But of course, as always, David, how was your week?
It was good. Work was slow again, which is frustrating, but picked up today. I told you before we got on that next weekend I'll be playing a game with some friends called Twilight Imperium. It's a board game. Apparently, it's like one of the most complicated board games out there. And I've been like reading the rule book and all that all week, like basically studying up how to play a board game for crying out loud. But the reason I mentioned it to you before we got on is because there's some fun pieces in the game that were like, I think that was Deep Space Nine inspired because not only is there a unit called the War Sun, which is very much inspired by the Death Star. The War Sun looks like a Death Star. But there's a unit called a Space Dock, which looks very much like Deep Space Nine, at least from a distance. And then there's a card you can get called the Prophet's Tier. And I was like, that's just way too on the nose. That's
Oh yeah.
definitely got to be Deep Space Nine related or inspired. So it was fun seeing that. But yeah, next week I'll be doing that with friends. So just getting prepared because there's a lot of rules to know, a lot of details to have to like. If you don't know this detail, you might make a mistake and you lose everything. So yeah, looking forward to that. And then yeah, how much else? How about you?
Much of the same, just mainly working. Obviously taking care of the kiddo and doing these workouts and actually starting to see some developmental change here and there. Unfortunately, I was hit with a slight, I don't want to call it like a necessarily full on injury, but it's more like just it's an annoyance. I have developed tendonitis in my right
Oh no.
elbow.
Uh huh.
So yeah, the classic. I think it's called tennis elbow. I think it's probably the more famous colloquial term. So I had to wait a couple of days, and I just got this arm brace that's supposed to help me continue to work out with minimizing the pain. I have not actually worked out with it yet. I just got it yesterday evening.
Right.
So I'm waiting to try that out and see because definitely trying to like just push through workouts without it has become increasingly difficult. I might be able to finish the workout, but then I'm in a lot of pain afterwards. So I'm
Right.
trying to, not just, take it easy and let things kind of, let the swelling go down, ease the tension and so forth. But I need to make sure the brace will work for me. Um, but yeah, other than that, just, other signs that I'm getting older and having to deal with it because this certainly would not and was not an issue 15 years ago, 20 years ago, so forth and so on.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, things have been pretty steady, pretty good. So I'm not really worried about anything else. I do have a couple of events coming up here really soon. Here in Austin, there is a food and wine festival in North Round Rock. that because of my sister's wine affiliations, she's gotten the ability to kind of bring some people as like her guests. You know,
Nice. Okay.
so yeah, I get to go up and pretend to know something about wine and really.
You
So we
snob. Yeah.
Yeah, so we were trying to figure out a way to, like, make this work and everything else, so they all have their very official company shirts, and I'm not a part of the company, so I have no shirt, and so, got together and, again, Amazon is great and expedient, and we were able to put together a shirt for me that now just says, the company's name and then security on it. So I'm gonna be wearing this shirt, and the funny thing about that is, um, when they were talking about the idea and all of us going and everything like that, people were like, "Well, I'd rather wear his shirt than that one." So now there's, like, gonna be a core group wearing the bar is called Wine. So they'll be wearing a wine sensation shirt, and then all of our shirts are just solid black, and in white block letters it says wine sensation security. I was like, our job when we walk though, we have to like flank everybody wearing those other shirts the whole time. Just make it look like they were so important they had to hire security and just go through and just do
Big
everything.
thing of it.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
that, and that's tomorrow. So yeah, just stuff like that coming up, and then of course continuing on with training.
Nice.
So Oh,
Very
and
good.
that reminds me, yeah, if there are people out there who are in any way interested, even slightly in the workouts or anything like that that I have been doing, or just want to see some of it, I have been thinking of putting something together to where I could just start sharing some of that. I haven't really got into it because I have this weird kind of love hate with um, recording, especially when you're doing workouts. I've never been a fan of that. People who post up in the gyms and they're taking pictures and posing and all that kind of stuff. I don't like that. But the group that I've been working out with, they do encourage that, we update stuff and share progress and get things out there because it's a way to help you kind of boost your confidence and also help you to maintain consistency. So I've been thinking about doing that. So if you're interested at all, just kind of keep looking at those social media things that we have for the fire caves, and then once all that is together, I'm just going to start posting a few links here and there on Facebook, on X, on whatever, and just every so often I'll just throw the link up, and if you want to follow along and see what I'm doing, you'll be able to. So that'll probably be up in the next couple of weeks because I'll probably not do it not this week because of stuff that's happening, but then after that. So,
Right. Okay.
but we're not here to talk about all of that. We are here to talk about Star Trek Deep Space Nine, the 97th episode and the second to last episode of season four. And what a doozy season four has been. I went back today and we just kind of like scanning through the episodes that make up season four. We've had a lot of changes in this season, and I can't wait for when we're done. We're going to obviously kind of we always do our recap, we're
Right.
going to go through it. I think this is probably the most dynamic season that the show has. It's really like, when you talk about those moments in shows that turn a corner, this is definitely the season that does that for this show. So I can't wait to get into all that. Not next week, but it'll be the week after for that.
Right.
But tonight we are here to talk about body parts. So would you like to give the recap or do you want me to do it?
I can do it. Did I do it last week? Whose turn is it?
I think you did do it last
So
week.
yeah, go for it. Go for it.
All right. So in this episode, we find a very, very happy Quark celebrating in the bar. He's just come back from a 2-week trip on Ferenginar, and he is just, in great spirits, better than we've really ever seen him. And his brother's there, and they're talking, and they're just kind of having this great kind of family moment when Quark drops the bombshell that he is dying. Now I forget that's actually not how the episode starts. We actually start in ops, and it's with Chief O'Brien, Dax, and Worf, who are listening to O'Brien lament about the fact that his wife has gone on this trip with Kira and Dr. Bashir, and she is several months into a pregnancy, and she's just doing all these things that's making him quite nervous. Basically, he
Right.
wants her to stay home, whereas she's like, I want to rappel down the cliffs of Bajor, and I want to, do all these trips and so forth and so on. And Dax is pretty much like, get over it, you know. So as they're talking about that, the runabout comes through the wormhole, and they're signaling that someone's been injured, and it's Keiko. So we don't know to the extent of the injury until we get to sick bay, and we see Kira first, and she's basically like she's beat up, but she's okay, and she tells O'Brien that everybody's fine, but things have changed, and basically Keiko is no longer pregnant, but Kira is. And we later see in this story that because of the injury sustained in the accident in the runabout, Kira or Keiko had to they had to move the baby from Keiko to Kira.
Right.
Unfortunately, because of the unique physiology of Bajorans and the way that they develop babies and so forth, they can't switch the baby back. Kira is going to have to carry the baby to term.
Right.
This leaves the O'Brien family feeling kind of out of sorts because Keiko apparently really loves being pregnant and having the baby grow and develop inside her and so forth. And they're missing out on the experience overall. And they really just want to find ways to stay connected to their baby and so forth. And they invite Kira over, and it's all an adjustment for everybody else. And they ultimately decide that they want Kira to move in with them so that they can be with her and help her as this pregnancy continues and to be as a part of the experience as they can.
Right.
It's a very interesting, and I felt like it was a very touching thing,
Right.
And then there's even a line in there towards the end uh, um, when Kira does decide to move in, and they show her room, and Molly comes in, and they basically say that yes, Kira is now Aunt Kira to Molly, and I just wanted to
Nice.
stop and just say, as a brief aside, Molly has the weirdest family ever because if you remember, Worf delivered Molly when they were on the Enterprise. So he's Uncle Worf. So she's got Uncle Worf and Aunt Kira
Yeah.
who's carrying her brother. This girl she needs Counselor Troy like bad. She doesn't even know it yet. She needs Counselor Troy to sort her out. She's gonna have so many issues
Yeah.
when she gets a little older. So that's essentially our B plot. Our A plot is definitely dealing with Quark, who, again, as I said, has returned from Ferenginar, where he had been diagnosed with a disease called Doric syndrome. It's a very rare disease, but it's also fatal. So, knowing that it's fatal, he realized he says he has 6 days to get his affairs in order and to settle up, basically. And he's trying to account for all of his debts and what he's going to do and all this kind of stuff. And apparently, in Ferengi culture, when you die and you are a Ferengi of note, you sell your vacuum desiccated remains on the Ferengi exchange, and it's another way of also clearing debts and setting your family up.
Right.
And so he is kind of reluctant to do this because he feels like he's a nobody and there's no one's going to want any pieces of him. But Rom convinces him to do it anyway, to list his remains on the exchange. He does. And eventually he gets a huge offer, 500 bars of gold pressed platinum, the actual big bars. We've only really ever seen the small
Strips.
strips, and then the it's strips, slips, and bars. So we've seen slips and we've seen strips. We've never seen bars. So 500 bars equals, what did he say? I think it was like 10,000 slips, and then it was a million slips. So there's your ratio, really quick, of Ferengi currency. Um, so yes, so he lists it. He's very excited that he's going to get this deal, and then not what a day maybe after he signs on the contract, Bashir pops up and says, "Oh, I just heard from this doctor who says you don't have Doric syndrome. You're fine." And so now it turns into, well, I've got to cancel this contract because I'm not going to die.
Right.
But now he's got to get in contact with the buyer to see who it is. And it turns out to be none other than our favorite Ferengi commerce enforcer, Brunt from
Yep.
the FCA. And
Yep.
Brunt is back, and Brunt has a, a goal in mind. And so Quark tries to cancel the deal, but Brunt is not backing down.
Right.
And it turns out that Brunt has decided that Quark is the worst kind of Ferengi. He's a Ferengi that's gone Starfleet. He has humanitarian aspects about him. He calls him the worst thing you can call a Ferengi, a philanthropist, and
Yes.
really insults him, calling him a philanthropist, but basically
Yeah.
says, "You've got two options. You can either give me my 52 vacuum desiccated sealed packages of quark, or you could break the contract." And as Ferengi rules of acquisition say, a contract is a contract is a contract, but only between Ferengi.
Ferengi.
So if he breaks the contract, then Quark can no longer do business with any other Ferengi. All of his possessions, money, assets, everything will be completely stripped away. His family will be rendered destitute, and it'll be the end of him in Ferengi culture. He'll be exiled, all of it. If you break a Ferengi contract with another Ferengi, you're done.
Right.
So he hems and haws about it a little bit, decides at first he's going to go through with it. He hires Garrick to find ways to kill him. He objects to every way to kill him. He eventually has a weird dream, vision, whatever you want to call it, which helps him to decide he is ultimately going to break the contract. He does break the contract, much to Brunt's glee, delight.
Right.
Brunt seizes everything that he has and renders him utterly destitute, even to the point where the shirt that he was wearing, Brunt owned, and he had to
Right.
send it to him.
Right.
So he's not really sure what he's going to do. He knows that he's pretty much out of options, and that's when our intrepid crew shows up, and Dax, or it's Bashir
Bashir.
first with a box of apparently bad tasting whiskey. Then Dax with some very ugly glasses. I will agree, those were some
Yeah.
ugly glasses.
Yep.
And then in comes Cisco, who's the real hero here, who
Right.
has miraculously found all of this bar equipment that just needs to go somewhere. And
Right.
lo and behold, you've got
Yeah.
the most space.
Yeah. Cork, you
Here
don't
you
need this.
go.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
need all this space, do you? So we're gonna store all of these bar stools, chairs, serving tables, glasses, all the things you need to run a bar. For some reason had upstairs. We're just gonna bring it here. Here you go, and gives it to him.
And of
And not,
course, Cork, yeah,
I
gets
was
to
gonna
say,
say, couldn't, even though he's getting all of this stuff free, he still can't resist saying, "You got to pay a small storage fee to put this stuff in here." So Quark begins to see that, while he didn't think he had any real wealth or assets, he does in the form of the friends he's made by being on the station.
right.
So again, a rather touching, a surprisingly touching moment in a weirdly comedic yet also serious storyline. It's This is a weird episode because it's like the things they dealt with were so like bizarre, but at the same time, they were all ultimately heartwarming. So
Right.
it's like it's an oddly touching episode in this season of weird twists and turns. So yeah, but that's it. That's essentially the episode. I would highly suggest that you go and watch it. I really like a lot of things that come out of the development of this episode,
Yeah.
and we're going to talk about those here now. But of
Okay.
course, since I just did all this talking, to give myself a break, and of course, because I want to know, David, what did you think of this episode?
Yeah, I like this one a lot. As I've especially the next generation did was make me lawns, and Deep Space Nine's version is the Ferengi. How do we understand a culture that's as upside down as we can imagine it, where everything they do is money, 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 business, 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 contract, contract, contract. Um, it's silly, but that moment where Brunt comes to him and says, "I'm going to ruin you if you break this contract because I think you're a philanthropist. You're a Federation guy. You charge the Bajoran refugees cost. You didn't even upcharge them, but I did a little bit. That's just the same.
Not
You
enough.
barely, not enough.
He goes, "I'll take
Uh,
away their vacations."
Vacations, yeah.
You
You
gave them
gave them
vacations?
vacations. Yeah, it's great. It's absolutely hilarious. The absolute extreme of the idea that someone would be a taskmaster, and that is what the culture expects. And if you aren't a taskmaster, then you're actually below the. It's upside down. Like you can't be nice to your people. The fact that he got the union got him, and he gave into the union. All of that stuff. It's just hilarious. And then the fact that they would make every single family member suffer for one family member failing a contract or any of that. Every single one of your family members is punished along with you. So your family is part of the way they keep you in line, because none of your family
Hmm.
wants to suffer for you screwing up. So if they have to come in behind you and fill in your contract, maybe Moogie would have done something if she had known to do something, for example. But she's a woman, so she's not allowed to do it, for example. So yeah, it's a funny episode. Quark starting off seemingly very happy and gay, and let's drink a drink, and then I'm dying. Oh, it's just hilarious. Quark has always been a character that you kind of love to hate him,
Hmm.
and so this is a great moment of seeing that upside down world of the Ferengi and enjoying it for an episode. And I have to say, I like the fact that there are permanent consequences to his decisions in this episode. He
Yes.
is now exiled from the Ferengi culture. I don't know what we'll be doing to maybe try and fix that, or if it's only a temporary problem, or if it's going to be permanent truly for the rest of the series. But I like that that is where we're at, especially near the end of season 4. He's had runs in with Brunt several times now. This is, I think, the third time we've seen Brunt. But yeah, it's great to see that.
Hmm.
Yeah, Quark has
Hmm.
uh, but he was it in a very specific way. It's almost like Brunt set it up. Like Brunt told the doctor, he bribed the doctor
You
to
know,
tell Quark.
I've wondered that. I've wondered that, like, if they had
Yeah,
time, if they would expand on the story, and it turns out that Brunt knew that Quark was coming home for his
right.
physical and had bribed the doctor
Yes.
to tell him this to set him up this way. I
Right.
think that would have been a great tie-in to the story, just to
I
kind
think
of
it happened because he
yeah.
knows that the doctor called him to say that he's not actually gonna
Mhm.
die. How did he know that information? Well, he is a FCA member or whatever.
An FCA
Um,
liquidator, and they have a lot of power, and they obviously scare people. So
right.
yeah, an FCA liquidator showing up at the doctor's doorstep probably scared him, and he was probably more than willing to cooperate if it meant
Yes.
keeping him out of the scrutiny of the liquidator's office.
Yes. And what's
So
funny
yeah.
too, because when Quark finds out that he's still gonna live, his first reaction is, "I get to file a malpractice
Mm.
litigation."
And another nice throwaway here is that Rom suggests early on, when he first tells him that he's got Doric syndrome, that he should go to Bashir and get a second opinion. And he was like, what does he know? He's
Yeah.
human. He doesn't even charge. Like, he doesn't discount him as, just because he's, a human with a human doctor or whatever, but it's more because he does everything for free. But it's
Right.
like, why not? Like, it
Yeah.
obviously would have cost you nothing to
Right.
go and get the second opinion and get a checkup,
Right.
but he didn't do it. And if he had done it, it would have probably solved all of his other issues.
Right.
But yeah, I just think that that's very interesting, and I did like that throwaway. He's like, "Well, he doesn't even charge. Like, why go to
Exactly.
him?"
Yeah.
Showing the clear way that Ferengi think that nothing is worth. It's not worth anything if there's no monetary attachment to it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Um,
Yeah. It's cheap for a reason. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Um, yeah. So, and as you were saying, like, Deep Space Nine has done a great job of overhauling the Ferengi to make them a bit more. I'm not going to say lovable, but I will
Oh
say
yeah.
palatable. Because when we first encounter them in the Next Generation, in the episode "The Last Outpost," they were horrible. They were these weird, snarling badger-like creatures. Really, the way they were kind of like falling in around each other and stuff, and staying close, and the way they kind of like
Yeah.
slinked around and everything like that. Interesting to note, Armin Shimmerman is in that episode as well. He is one of the Ferengi there too. He's been a Ferengi pretty much his whole Trek career.
Right.
So it's very
Well, on
interesting that
decade by
he's
this point.
helped that.
Yeah.
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 And so now we're seeing him, and he's getting this great development here in this show. Something that the actor Armin Shimmerman has talked about a lot. That he really did appreciate them finally giving layers to the Ferengi because they were kind of a one note joke
Right.
in Trek for a while, you know.
Right.
And so yeah, with the extra development here, we see that he really loves his people, he loves his culture, but he has been influenced a bit by the alien cultures that he has dealt with over the years of being on the station and elsewhere.
Right.
There was even a workup done that kind of compared him to American citizens who leave the United States and go and live abroad for a while. And then when they come back, how strange they seem to their US neighbors and stuff because they've picked up all these weird traits and habits and cultural whatevers from living in Spain for 10 years and then living
Right.
in, Africa for 20 years or whatever it is.
Right.
So I think that's a nice parallel. I could see that. A person who's lived somewhere for a while, you do pick up kind of the mannerisms and stylings and stuff of the area that you were in, and then you
Right.
move somewhere else and you tend to bring that
Right.
with you. But Brunt's issue is he feels like he is a disease that is spreading or is at risk of spreading through the rest of Ferengi culture, and he is going to cut him out. And his whole family is indicative of this. His nephew has joined the Federation as a full-on Starfleet cadet. His mother was earning profit. How dare she? And she wears clothes and speaks to men in her home and all that, And as we see with what Brunt is saying here, I wondered what was going to be the fallout for Mookie because she is back on Ferenginar. And as we know, women are not allowed to leave, they're not allowed to travel. And he says that his mother's going to be cast out, she's going to be left destitute, and all this stuff. Is Quark
Right.
really going to let that happen? I mean, he broke that contract. His
Right.
nephew is not really going to be affected because he's in Starfleet.
Right.
Rom isn't going to be affected because while he's not in Starfleet, he works on the station.
Right.
So his needs are going to be met. And then, of course, Quark, as we see at the end, is taken care of. So really, Moogie's
Right.
the only one that we don't really have any knowledge of what's happened to her the moment that this is declared
Right.
in effect.
Yeah, she's the one who's definitely the most in jeopardy of all this. Though part of me is a little bit. I think she'll be okay because that episode we did see her in, we could tell that she's more devious than she lets on.
Yes.
So I think she'll be
Yes.
okay. But yeah, it'll question to
She's
be.
clever.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. Yeah. What'll happen to Moogie? I don't know if we'll find out, but I'd be
Mhm.
curious.
Now, we also got the chance in this episode to catch up with another recurring character that we haven't really seen a whole lot of, and that would be Mr. Garrick. Garrick comes back and he is so eager to be the assassin that takes out Quark.
yeah.
So, with all the dissembling that Garrick has done over the years that we've been watching him now about his official role in the Obsidian Order, whether he was actually in the Obsidian Order or not, so forth and so on, he seems remarkably adept at killing hologram quarks.
Bones snapping and all.
Oh, bone snapping it all. So, what did you think when he went to Garrick as the assassin to hire?
Well, it's funny because he walks in and he's talking to what is it? Who's the guy he's talking to? Mook or uh,
Morn,
Morn? I was started
Morn.
with an M. I had Mookie on the mind. Morn. He's talking to Morn, and he's obviously absolutely like at the end of his rope with like, I put more padding in these pants. Like, get out. They've had some. The whole joke, of course, is with him is that I guess he's always real talkative off screen. Every time we see him,
Yes,
he doesn't say
Morn is the
anything.
most talkative person ever.
Right,
Never
but
shuts up.
exactly. But as soon as the camera gets on him, he doesn't say a thing. So funny moment. We from previous episodes that he doesn't like being a tailor. It's something he might be good at in a technical sense, but it's not something he likes doing or wants to do. And so when Quark comes to him and says, "I want to hire you as an assassin," his Nog is like Nog, right? Yeah, is all like, "Oh man, you can't hire him to kill the Brunt.
Mhm.
I want him to kill me. Like I have to commit. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm gonna die." but I'm not going to do it myself. I want someone else to do it. So it's great because Garrick puts his arm around his shoulders and walks him away. He's got a big old smile on his face. Like he
Hmm.
actually is happy to have business again as an assassin. He knows how to kill people for sure. And then
The
yeah,
way
this
his face lights up, it's
yes,
just like that should have. You know what? I made a mistake.
I'm
Never
gonna
mind.
yeah yeah
I'm gonna go.
yeah. I already made one mistake signing a contract I didn't intend to follow through on. I'm not
Hmm.
gonna do that again. But yeah, and then we're in the Hollow Suite, and we don't realize it at first, but Garrick walks up to this Hollow Suite version of Quark, and Quark's munching on some like fruit or something, real
Yeah,
happy, and then yeah, snap, and he falls down, and we see Quark show up that is behind his own dead body. He's like, "What? I don't want to hear my own neck snap
that was
before I die."
awful. All that bone snapping. I don't want to. He's like, wait a minute. Okay, so the bone snapping is too loud. The knife was too violent. He's just, you don't want to be
Yeah,
vaporized because you need a body, and
yeah,
the poison, it smelled bad.
yeah. The gas smelled bad. The poison tasted bad. All of the yeah, and Cork is just ruling out one thing after the other. And then he basically says, "I want to be surprised. I don't want to know how I'm gonna die,"
I don't want to see it coming.
and that makes Garrick even happier. He's like, "Okay, I can't wait now. You'll never see it coming." So Quark goes home, and he's every
Yeah,
shadow he can't.
introduces a lot of paranoia because now he's ducking and dodging around corners and scoping everything out and running into rooms and
Yeah.
falling to the ground and everything else. And then of course it sets us up for the vision that he has, the dream,
Which
in
I
which
did
he,
not like. I thought that was the weirdest moment in the whole episode. Not because it couldn't
yeah,
have worked. I just thought the whole time that he was actually in the Hollow Suite. That Garrick and Rom had dressed. I thought Rom had dressed himself up as a Nagus because even Quark says, "You look like my brother," and he's
well, he
the
says, well, yeah, it's because this is the dream.
yeah,
That's
he
what he
says
says.
that, but like no one in a dream. That's the thing about dreams. No one in a dream ever says this is a dream. Like that would make much more sense if the whole sequence had been in the Hollow Suite. They had kidnapped
Well,
him, put him in the
yeah,
Hollow Suite, and
yeah. I mean, this is also, you got to remember, they do it. They got to give the winks and nods where they can and fill people in on what's going on. They can't just rely on you being able to pick up the context clues that
well, this is
something's a
a
dream
moment
or
where
not. Yeah,
because
trust me,
he was
Star
in the
Trek.
Hollow Suite, so I thought that's where
Yeah,
he was still. But
well, trust me, Star Trek does this a lot, and they get it wrong nearly every time. Um, Special shout out to Star Trek Voyager and anytime Chakotay goes on a vision quest. Quite possibly the worst sequence of filming you will ever see. It's awful. I hear those lines, and when I hear him say, "I need to go on a vision quest," I die inside every time because I know we're getting ready to watch some colossal BS. So yeah, just yeah. Well,
gotcha.
you might get there, and when you see it, you'll be like, "Oh, I see what he means." So yeah, they don't do visions, dreamscapes, altered reality like that. They don't do those very well. So,
Right. Yeah.
but if you once you get over that part, I actually enjoyed the dream sequence because it's very telling, like, of Quark's subconscious
Right.
and how he actually views the Ferengi rules of acquisition. Because
Right.
we hear him talking about them all the time and how he's modeled his whole life around him and everything else, and yet his subconscious tells him there's not so much rules as they are guidelines, which is
Yes,
like one of
I would
my
say that
favorite
same
recurring
line. Yeah.
things. Yeah, they're guidelines.
Yeah.
We hear that, we've heard that a lot.
Not
Where
actual
I
rules.
can think in particular, Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah,
They
that's what
said
I was
that
thinking.
they're
Yeah,
more like guidelines. So it's a great
an actual
takeaway
rule.
for rules and stuff. And he even
Yeah.
says, "Would you buy a book called The Guidelines of Acquisition?" No. And remember, rule of acquisition number 235: never be afraid to mislabel a product. I cracked up when he said
I
that. I was
know.
like, that is fantastic. That's
I know
absolutely
it's so good.
fantastic.
Yeah, and then Quark is like, "What? Like, my whole culture is based on just a marketing ploy."
Right. And it just shows how deeply ingrained this stuff is in him, but also how,
Right.
he's aware of that. Now, however subconsciously, he's aware of that and he's able to maneuver as he needs to make things work. So that's what we see here in the episode too. So again, I loved all of the beats of this. I thought this was very well done,
Right.
very well thought out to make Quark, while giving us comedic elements. It also gave us a deeper appreciation of Quark and of Rom because his
Right.
undying support of his brother,
Right.
and we get to see Jeffrey Combs again as I was almost going to say Wayoon, but he's
Right.
Brunt. He is
Yeah.
also Wayoon,
Right.
but he is Brunt
And he has
here.
such a very particular way of talking, especially around those teeth he has to put
I
in.
was gonna say, did you
Yeah.
notice the teeth? His
Yeah.
teeth are particularly sharp, which
Yes.
I think that it has to be an aesthetic choice to go with the character for being so ruthless and menacing, and
Right.
his smile just looks so daggerishly
I know.
dangerous.
He always every
You
time
know,
he does a smile of any sort, it looks real unpleasant.
like he's got sharp teeth in there, and he's just waiting for the chance to get you. I was like, man, yeah, I feel like that's why you
Yeah.
talk like that because while the teeth work with your aesthetic, got to be killer on your lips and tongue trying to deliver lines in
Yeah, that's
there,
what I was
you know.
thinking. Um, but I real quickly want to go back and say that one thing I really liked about the dream sequence, even though I thought it was a hollow suite sequence, was Max Grodin chick as he's normally Rom, but he actually played Gint
The
really
first
well.
Negus,
Yeah, he changed his voice up enough that I knew it was him. You could tell it was him in the under the makeup, and even Rom or even Quark caught on, but he still did enough different to make him seem like a different character.
mm,
And when he first popped out, I did think he was the Grand Nagus. Grand Nagus, what? Who's the first?
Zek,
Zek.
played by
Um,
Wallace Shawn, but
I
he's
thought it
not in
was
this
him for
episode.
a brief second, but nope, he wasn't in it. But yeah, it's not like the whole sequence was wrong. It's just I thought it was a hollow suite segment, and so I was thrown
Mhm.
off the whole time. Especially when they kept trying to insist it was a dream. I thought they were trying. I thought Garrick had kidnapped Quark into the hollow suite and basically said, "I don't want to kill you. I'm going to be found out by Odo, and that won't ever work out anyway. So here's a little thing that Rom got here for you. So you're not going to be. I'm not going to kill you." But that's not how it went. So never mind.
Well, now I do want to take some time to turn our attention to the other story in our other family, which is now grown on the station, and that is, of course, the O'Briens.
Yeah.
I have to say, I really do enjoy this storyline for them. Um, Main reason is we get to catch up with Keiko again.
Right.
Keiko, I feel like, is a very underrated character. We saw her early on in season 1 and parts of season 2, but she's been kind of absent, and Rosalind Chow, the actress who plays Keiko, she was, pretty prolific during the 90s. She was doing a lot of different TV shows and movies and voice acting and so forth. So I know that had a lot to do with her not being a mainstay here. But also, there was this weird kind of negative backlash that um, Keiko was getting, and a lot of people were not enjoying her character. So they also kind of kept her out of things for that as well, which is just strange because I think she's great. I mean, like, I can see kind of some arguments about it. She kind of comes off at first as the kind of nagging Miles about a couple of things. But if you think about it, I mean,
Right.
she's just asking to be, useful and to be part of the community and part of the world and to be able
Right.
to do things. Nothing wrong with wanting to have a career and everything like that. And I think once we get past some of those moments, her character really does, blossom. And so I loved seeing
Right.
her here again and watching her interaction with everybody.
Right.
Miles, Kira, Molly, all of it. Really enjoyed all of that. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I've always found her character worthwhile. I sometimes get a little annoyed with the relationship in the sense that like sometimes she's nagging, but it's also O'Brien is being stubborn,
yeah,
and it's like yeah, he kind of deserves to be nagged because he's being really stubborn about something. Um, so yeah, if any of the two of them need any critiquing, it's O'Brien in those moments, in my opinion. But
yeah. He tends to dig his heels in a little too early on some things, and then it's just like when he eventually does come around, because he does. It's just
right,
like, man, if you had just done that from the beginning, like we wouldn't have to go through 38 minutes of
yeah,
you bickering.
Well,
and
Dax
you
really
know
lets him have it at the beginning of this episode when
she
he's
really does. I loved it. She was like, "Oh yeah, like the extra weight gain, the nausea, the
the
all the
kicking.
discomfort."
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I
there's
can
no
see why
way
you had
she
to
can remember
remind
this.
her.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh man, it was great. I was like, "Yeah, Dax, like tell him all the
yeah.
physical symptoms."
Right. Yeah. All Keiko's trying to say is like, I wish I could do these things, or when I'm not pregnant, I want to go do these things, or even if I am pregnant, it'd be great if I still could do those things. Relax, O'Brien. Relax.
Now it's again, this is one of those things I like to note as a just a point here. This was the '90s, and this was kind of a very common thing that you saw on all sorts of TV shows during that time period. Whenever the lady was pregnant, the guy was supposed to be this overprotective kind of belligerent rage monster who wanted her to sit down and stop working and prop your feet up and I'll do all this stuff and you just, just kind of be an extra fixture in the house while I, take care of everything,
Right.
and she was always, no, I have a career, I have a life, I have this, and that was always going to be their argument. The guy wants her to stop working, she wants to continue to work, and in some cases, work herself to extremes to prove that the pregnancy doesn't stop her, doesn't slow her down. And then you would have one of two things happening. Either she would work herself too hard and end up in the hospital and then have to be put on bed rest. So now the guy gets what he wants anyway.
Right.
Or the guy would eventually realize that, hey, it's okay for pregnant women to do whatever, mainly because he would see some other pregnant woman doing something else even more risky or whatever. And then
Right.
that would help him walk himself down from that crazy cliff he had perched himself on. And that was kind of the '90s trope there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this was the Star Trek equivalent of that. They just
Yeah.
didn't go quite to the extreme. And then, of
Right.
course, they get the very clever out with Kira becoming pregnant.
Right. Yeah. And according to Wikipedia here, they were trying to figure out how do they wrote in Keiko being pregnant, but then Kira Nerys, her actor is
The
uh
non-visitor actually became pregnant with
right.
Dr. Bashir's baby. hmm
yeah,
Some
yeah,
some
exactly.
rowdy goings on behind
Right,
the scenes.
exactly. And so they were trying to come up with a solution, and I guess it's the writer. Let's see, Ira Bayer. Was he
Ira
one of the
Stephen
writers that?
Ira Stephen Bear, his wife, came up with the idea because
Right,
again, the common trope back then was whenever a woman was pregnant on a show, if it wasn't a part of the storyline, they had to come up with clever ways to hide that she was pregnant. No filming from mid-level down and you know other little, something would happen so that she could be away to give birth and all that stuff. So they didn't
right,
want to do that. And of course, we had seen them do this in Next Generation when Beverly Crusher, the actress who plays Beverly Crusher, Gates McFadden, had been pregnant. And all through the fourth
right,
season as well, when she was pregnant, she's never filmed from the waist down. She never does any like major action thing. She's always behind a bench or a desk or whatever. You never really see her. And then in Voyager, also in season four, something must have been going on season fours of these shows. Chief Engineer Belana Torres, played by Roxanne Dawson, was also pregnant, and they did that to her. I think they gave her an overcoat to wear at one point, and then yeah, we never see her fully from the waist down anymore. And they didn't want to do that with Kira, so they figured out this Trekified reason
right.
to make her pregnant
Yeah, Dr. Bashir somehow on a runabout, not on the
on
station.
a damaged runabout
Yeah,
without medical support was able to transplant the human baby into the Bajoran Kira and stimulate all the necessary hormones and umbilical attachments and whatever else to
all by
connect
himself.
all by himself
Damn,
because
that planet last week that he couldn't solve the cure for. What the hell was he doing? He was not on full blast apparently.
and Quark won't go to this guy for a simple checkup. I mean, wow.
Yeah. Huh? Like, how does this make sense? Sciencey
Yes.
future
So now the
technology,
oh yeah. So
blah.
well the explanation that they give is that whereas with humans the gestation is 9 months, with Bajorans it's essentially 5 months.
Right?
Have I heard that right? So
Yes, but I'm
and
curious
this
if
is
that 5 months with the 26-hour day, so it's more like 6 months human time if you consider the longer day cycle. It's 3 months
maybe.
shorter, not 4 months shorter. But yeah, keep going. You had something else to say.
Well, because Bashir says that there is a lot of vascular attachments that happen between mother and baby. So to me, what that image, I don't want to creep anybody out, but basically we know that we have the one umbilical cord
Right,
that attaches all the various whatevers to the baby from mother to baby.
right.
What I envisioned when he was talking about this was that there was probably more of those. Yes,
Two or three
multiples,
umbilical cords just all bumping.
5, 10, 15, whatever, and
I
that
don't.
they are these,
And it turns out 50% of their babies strangle on the
yeah,
way out because they got so
basically,
many umbilical cords.
yeah, they're basically, like the Borg equivalent is the Bajorans, right? So they've got all these attachments lying in the back. Think the Matrix, but inside
Yeah,
the
there you
womb.
go. There you go.
Yeah. So
Uh,
that's what I was picturing in my head when he said that. And so then he says, we can't just sever all of those. It
I
will
can't
cause
undo
massive
it.
bleeding
Yeah,
for the mother. In this case, it would kill her if they did
yeah.
that. So that's
Very,
why
very
once
convenient
it's done,
reason, right?
yes, very convenient reason for why she has to carry the baby to term.
Right.
So I was fine with that. Now it's interesting to note that this is not something that you can actually do yet. I did some reading on this, and it turns out that they are investigating currently the science behind fetus transplants, so that in the event that for whatever reason one womb can't do it, they can move them to another. We do actually have artificial wombs now. You can once the egg and sperm do the fertilization dance,
Placenta. Yeah.
yes, all that happens, you can actually fully, well, grow a baby in an artificial womb, but actually transplanting has not been done yet. But the science says that we're within 15 to 20 years possibly of doing that. So if you're interested, it was fascinating to read. It was kind of disturbing to read, to be honest. To me
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
it
I
was
imagine.
disturbing to read. Some people might just
Right.
find it fascinating. There were definitely aspects of it that I was like, huh, that's really cool. But then the more I thought about it, I guess I'm like permanently poisoned by all things sci-fi that I've consumed over my life, because all I was thinking was like pod people and impossible children,
Yeah.
as the term goes
Right.
for all those things. We got the
Yeah.
impossible kids running around who are all birthed extra utero, I guess would be the term.
Ex utero. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, it makes. I mean, I just think of like movies like The Island, which was the Michael Bay movie, where like they're growing
oh
clones in that
yeah, they
one,
were growing clones. They
but
were
like
clones of famous people to be their
right,
organs.
yeah, they just needed to harvest the organs. And I'm just like, man, like I'm not saying that obviously if artificial wombs are where I mean put it this way, the technology for the movie The Island would start with something like an artificial womb. And so part of me is like, yep, that sounds dangerous if we go down the wrong path. like, uh,
Yeah.
but I mean,
Yeah.
there is the very real life thing of people using surrogates to
Yeah.
have their babies.
Yeah.
I have to say on a moral level, I feel like that seems wrong.
What
I don't
seems
think.
wrong?
Well, the idea that a woman selling her womb space seems just wrong on a moral level. Like the a baby is not something that you just like you the idea that you would have a child, you have the pregnancy for 9 months and then you're done with it. Like I have to imagine there's some
Uh,
sort of bond there that would it seems like it's just so
uh,
I don't know. It just feels a little odd. People who like require that for like if the woman herself is unable to get pregnant, and so they use a surrogate in
yeah, I
order to
mean,
have a
that's
child.
what
Right.
I guess that's why it doesn't bother me. My standpoint is, I mean, I'm fine with it because I
Well,
understand
I
that
guess
there
what I'm
are couples out there who can't have.
Well, for
children
me, I'm just
themselves.
thinking of people who use it as like a I don't want the stretch marks, so I'm rich and famous, and so
Oh,
I'm just going to
that,
pay
yeah, yeah,
some poor
that.
woman to, she's been pregnant 10 times already, so she's
Well,
used to it. I don't know if
well,
that's how it
personally,
happens.
yeah,
I might be
personally, I'm
exaggerating.
against those. Yeah, I think you're talking about a more extreme case, the more vain individual who says they want a child but doesn't want to go through the physiological changes of childbirth because
Right.
they're too pretty for childbirth. I'm against those people having children. Period. So I don't really
Yeah,
care.
I'm
But
100%
the
behind you
other
on that part.
people,
Yeah.
yeah. So but the other people who are like who would be loving, dedicated parents, but
Right.
for some particular physiological reason, she can't carry a child. She can produce an egg, but
Right.
she can't carry the child. I have nothing against them using a surrogate to have their child because I mean they want the kid. If they could, they would do it the natural way. This is something that
Right.
would it's just going to be a benefit. Those other vain individuals who are just basically using people as commodities, I have no sympathy. I don't want them to be around people at all. So
Right.
yeah, no, I don't want them.
Right.
I don't want them to have children. And I mean, I don't know if that's a good thought or a bad thought or whatever. But I mean, because those people to me don't sound like people who would be good parents either. You're not interested in being a parent. You want a
Right.
child because you think it's cool or trendy or something like that. You're not thinking long term. So yeah, you shouldn't have a
Right.
kid anyway. But to
Right.
the other groups who have tried and tried and tried and just can't, and now they find out that it's because of some kind of imbalance, and this is the only other alternative to give them the family that
Right.
they've been trying for, 100% go do it.
Right.
Do it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna get slightly controversial here, so if anyone needs to hear that beforehand, I'm gonna say it. But it's just I've also heard stories of women who have been surrogates, and for whatever reason, there was some sort of medical issue. The story I know of is a woman who was being a surrogate, found out she had cancer, and so she had to get cancer treatments. But now she's pregnant with a child that's not technically her own genetic material, and does that mean that she needs to kill the baby through an abortion in order to have the chemotherapy? Does she put up with the chemotherapy and hope the baby survives, which is unlikely? Uh, or if there's a medical defect in the baby, do the genetic parents have the right to say abort the child if the mother or the woman who has rights there? It's just it just that surrogacy thing. It is like there's a lot
Uh-huh.
of moral implications that sometimes arise that people don't really think about, and that's where the law comes in. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the law doesn't have a place. I'm saying that those
Well,
issues get very murky, and if we're just laissez faire, casual about those questions, then
well,
we're gonna
I would sincerely hope that anybody doing these things and undertaking surrogacy, they're not doing it in any kind of casual manner,
right.
and that there's also contracts and paperwork that
Yes,
clearly
that
defines
determines all
who
those questions
has right,
beforehand.
and
Yeah,
that all that is done long before any kind of implantation happens because I'm sure that emotions run the full spectrum as the baby develops.
right,
And I would hate for a person who was like, "Oh, I have absolutely no problem with being a surrogate," and then you're days away from delivery and you've suddenly changed your mind and you want to keep the baby. But that's that woman's and that man's egg and sperm in you, you know, that's their genetic that's their genetic contribution there. That's their baby.
right,
So how do you tell them they don't have a right to it because it wouldn't exist without them? You just carried it,
right,
you know. So yeah, things like that. You're right. Those are some murky waters of moral quandaries there. But
right,
again, that's why you shouldn't enter into anything until you've read through it and you've considered it and you're fully aware that the document you sign gives these people these rights and here are your rights and go with it. And as we found out also in this episode, a contract is a contract. So
I didn't think we'd come around full circle on this, but we
we
just
we
did.
absolutely did. We made it. Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. Circled around.
Boom.
So yeah, hey, I think this is the first time that we've made sure that both the A and B plots relate to each other. So
Yeah, because they actually didn't in any way in this
they
episode.
really didn't, but we
Yeah,
got you there. You're
yeah,
welcome.
yeah.
You are welcome.
yeah.
Thanks for tuning in tonight.
I have the one thing I thought was kind of fun about this episode is Kira being pregnant. Like, I don't know if that means her character is gonna change in some way. Like, she's gonna feel like, oh, where's the first minister? I want to have kids. Like, is she gonna have maternal instincts? Is that gonna be a character
Uh,
development for her, or is this gonna be a brief
well, you're just
bloop
gonna
and
have
then
to
it's
wait
done?
and
Next season we
see.
come back and yeah.
You're just gonna have to wait and see. Stop trying to jump the gun, David. We haven't even got to season
Ah,
5 yet. All right,
what? I
jeez.
can't. I can't look ahead. Come on.
I mean, you could, but why spoil it for yourself? So
Yeah. Yeah.
Cisco once again makes a small appearance in this episode. First, when telling O'Brien about his issues with the baby, and or
Which
he's
was
helping.
hilarious.
Yes, there that was a great scene with those
Yes.
three,
Yes.
Bashir, O'Brien, and Cisco,
Cisco.
and he's just like, yeah, so we had to do this thing, and the baby couldn't stay in her womb, so I had to put it in another womb, and the only other options were me and Kira, and Bashir and Cisco's like, I think you made the right choice, Doc. It's like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And then he's trying to basically make sure that O'Brien is
hey,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's
Like,
like, don't get, hey, your baby's healthy, man.
yeah.
Keep it up. Keep
Yeah.
stay positive. Your baby's
Yeah.
here. It's like, don't.
Yeah. He was
I
trying
love when they
so
do
hard.
the yeah,
Yeah.
whenever they do these family tie-ins and children and stuff. Cisco is just he's so positive. He's just so into it. It's
Right.
great. Like he's not all weird and standoffish like Picard always was around children and stuff. He's such a warm family man. He's like, man, you're gonna have a baby, Chief. Just focus on that. That's
Yeah.
that's the thing. Latch on there. So
Yeah. Yeah. It was a funny moment because Cisco is like working hard. I thought it was great.
he's really carrying them in that one to just like keep the tension because you can see like
Yes. Well,
it
because
almost seemed like
O'Brien is
O'Brien wanted to attack Bashir.
yeah, because they've had a history of multiple like times when Bashir stepped on O'Brien's toes. Even in the
Yeah,
last episode when we were having the planet of the plague planet, Bashir being a doctor was using technical jargon, and Dax was like, "Let me communicate that in easier terms." Saying, "Yeah, Bashir is talking on a level up here, but I know you're down here." So yeah, Bashir is very much he sometimes needs a translator, and Cisco in this case was not the technical jargon translator, but the emotional situation translator.
and he just looks so nervous trying to explain to the chief what happened. He's like, and
Yes.
I just sorry, bro. Like
Yeah.
it happened. Didn't mean for it to.
Still, I
Uh,
swear, I know it would be creepy and weird and just uncomfortable as all get out, but part of me is super curious. How in the hell did he make this happen? How did he do it? But I don't need to know the details. That's
Now
why I'll just pass. Don't need to know.
I'm going to assume that it's not as graphic as you think. I'm assuming there would have been
My
a
thought
lot of
is,
hypo sprays to get Kira's body ready, and then some
well,
nice
that conversation
transporter.
must have been interesting. Cake
Yeah,
Keiko's unconscious
yeah.
inside of you. I need you to sit still for a minute. I don't know to use a
He
trans the
probably
trans
he probably laid him. He probably laid them down side by side so he could get the coordinates right and did a site to
right.
site transport
That's
from
exactly what I
one
thought
to the other.
happened. Yeah.
But he would have had to like stimulate Kira to actually have her womb
Uh,
expand to
exactly.
accommodate the baby at its current development stage and make the connections and yeah. And could you imagine like they're both unconscious and then they wake up and the one who was pregnant isn't and the one who wasn't is and she's and I mean the total physiological change because she would also have had to put on weight to be able to carry the baby. So to imagine that you went to sleep and when you woke up, you were say 25 pounds heavier. Let's just say. Or even that it wasn't that you went to sleep, you were working, and then
Right.
all of a sudden something happened and you lost consciousness. And when you woke up, you were 25
Yeah.
pounds heavier. Just like, what the hell?
That's exactly the question that needs to be answered, but probably won't be.
It's the worst day ever. I'm quitting Mattress Firm immediately. I don't know what's going on.
uh,
Oh man. And then of course we have little sweet Molly with Aunt Kira, Uncle
yeah.
Worf,
I
brother
thought she
in
was.
Kira.
I thought she was going to become the godmother. I thought that was where we were going to go. Like you're the godmother now, but I mean, aunt's fine, but godmother is where I would have gone with it. But
Yeah, well, I mean, she is carrying the baby, so I mean, I feel like Godmother's a little too distant for that. Um, but I would love to see that episode where Molly is maybe 18 and is gonna go to Starfleet Academy, and so she brings in her recommendation letters, and so she's got one from obviously her father, Chief Miles O'Brien, the most important man in Starfleet history, if you were to believe the Lower Decks episode about him anyway. You got that. You've got Worf, living legend Worf from the Enterprise and everything else, who's obviously going to give her one. And then you have Kira, who is just like, how did you get these? Well, he's my dad, that's my aunt, and that's my uncle. What? No way.
mm-hmm,
Yep, yep.
mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh man, I mean, I'm sure they're used to unusual people walking through the door, but that would be one hell of a combination.
Yeah.
Hey, that'd be a great show. Like truly call it the next generation, and it's everybody's kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd watch that. I'd watch that. All the kids are on a ship commanded by Captain Wesley Crusher, because he'd be the oldest.
I thought he wasn't in Starfleet anymore.
He could come back. It's Star Trek. There's nothing to say that he can't. And he's just put together a ragtag team of everybody's terrible children, just to see what they can do, and be like,
Right.
"Are you anything like your mother, father, cousin, uncle, whoever that was that recommended you? Oh no, you're just a bitter disappointment. Okay, great. Let's move on."
uh,
Because now, yeah, because in Star Trek, we've now had several people who've had children who, if you follow the timeline, they'd all be in their at least in their early adulthood, 20s and 30s and stuff. Where in Wesley's case, he's 40 something now, 45, 46.
yeah.
So, yeah, there you go. Paramount, there's your next show. Get all the kids together and put them on a ship.
Boom.
Done. You're doing everything else, so do that. Well, final thoughts on this nice, friendly, comedic, family-ish episode.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a good one. It was again, Ferengi culture is fun to explore when you get a deep dive. We had a lot of those extra characters. We had Keiko, Rom, Garrick, and Brunt as recurring characters. Some of those more recurring than others, but a number of recurring characters in this episode. Again, I thought Grand Nagus was going to be back. We didn't have Nog. We didn't have
No
Jake, I
Jake,
guess, but
no Jake, no Nog.
the number of recurring characters in this episode is actually pretty high. So
It is. I think this is one of the few that has so many who also have um, major contributing parts to the story. They're not just there;
right,
they do things. So yeah,
right, yeah,
um, yeah. I mean, like I said before when we started this, I really enjoy this episode. It's one of those that uh, I feel like you get a little bit more out of it every time that you watch it. There's just something else to appreciate about it each time that you watch it. I certainly did in watching it this time in prep for our show tonight.
right.
Um, so now, as always, I like to close everything out with a little brief update of all things Trek. Everything is off the air except for Strange New Worlds. Discovery is slated to come back soon. I think it's October, but I will double check that and tell you in the next episode of its official release date. But that'll be the final season of Discovery, of course. There is nothing else. They said they have started production on the Section 31 movie with Michelle Yeoh, but there has been no further announcements or updates about that. So um, basically, they're in such an early stage. We're probably not going to see that movie until 2026 at best. But it's probably going to be even longer than that now that I think about it, because we still have the writer strike that's going on, and so all that stuff is shut down. So, and we're into what, month five, month six
Five.
of them, yeah, them not doing things. So, yeah, lots of delays on a lot of projects. So, we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, we'll try to keep bringing you interesting things through our show and beyond. As I said, we will have the final episode of season 5 next week. And then, of course, we would do our recap in one of our favorite, segments, which is, of course, the Fire Caves After Dark. So be sure to tune in for that. And we will be talking about The Expanse as well, and starting projections on starting book 5, because we said we were going to do that, or I was going to start it when we also started season 5. So we'll
Right.
do a recap of that too, since we're going to be doing recaps, and just go through it. But until then, you can find us and follow us anywhere that you happen to do your social medias, of course, and you can listen to us anywhere that you listen to podcasts. I happen to do it on Spotify. So until next week, guys, take care of yourselves.
Thanks, guys.